Grieving dragon pack mourned their lost hatchlings until a human appeared in the snow. The wind screamed across the frozen plains of Velreth Ix, carrying ice and sorrow in equal measure. The Dracorian had known this world for 300 years. But tonight it felt like a grave elder matriarch, Kelthries, stood at the entrance of the sacred nesting caves. Her silver scales dulled by grief, her ancient eyes scanning the endless white horizon. Behind her, the mourning cries of 40 dragons echoed through the stone chambers. A sound that had not been heard in centuries. 17 hatchlings were gone, stolen in the night by creatures who moved like shadows and smelled of metal and greed. The thermal caves had been their sanctuary, the one place in the galaxy where Dracorian young could grow safe and warm. Now those caves held only empty nests and the lingering scent of fear. "We found their trail," Varentis reported, landing beside the matriarch with snow clinging to his crimson scales. He was young and fierce, barely 2 centuries old, and his rage burned bright enough to melt the ice beneath his claws. "Poachers from the Syndicate of Chains. They have a ship crashed in the northern valley." Kelthries spread her wings, and despite her grief, her voice carried the authority of 1,000 years. "Gather the hunters. We fly now." 20 dragons took to the sky, cutting through the blizzard like arrows of living flame. The Dracorian were ancient beings, older than most civilizations in the galaxy, and they had survived extinction once before. They would not lose their children without blood being spilled. The crash site appeared through the swirling snow, a small shuttle torn apart against the rocks, smoke rising from its broken hull. Kelthries circled once, twice, her keen senses searching for movement. The main ship escaped. Varentis snarled, his claws tearing into the frozen ground as he landed. "They transferred our hatchlings and fled. These ones were left behind to die." The hunters spread across the wreckage, searching for survivors to interrogate, for clues to follow. But there was only twisted metal and frozen corpses. The poachers had abandoned their own wounded when they fled. Kelthries felt despair threatening to consume her. For Dracorian, hatchlings were not simply offspring. They were pieces of their very souls, connected through bonds that transcended physical distance. She could still feel her stolen young, frightened and crying somewhere in the cold void of space. "Matriarch," one of the hunters called out. "There is something alive in the main cabin." The dragons converged on the broken shuttle, their breath creating clouds of steam in the frigid air. Kelthries pushed through them, her eyes narrowing at what she saw. A small figure crawled from the wreckage, leaving a trail of blood across the snow. It was bipedal, wrapped in torn fabric that might once have been a uniform, and it clutched something against its chest with desperate strength. A human. Varentis hissed, his flames flickering dangerously. "The Deathworlders work with anyone who pays enough. This one helped steal our children." The human collapsed face first into the snow, but even then, it did not release what it held. Kelthries stepped closer, her massive head lowering to examine the creature. It was a female, young by human standards, with dark hair matted with blood and frost. Her skin had turned pale blue from the cold, and her breathing came in shallow gasps. But what caught Kelthries' attention was the container she protected. It was a thermal unit, military grade, humming softly with power despite the crash. The human had wrapped her own body around it, shielding it from impact. "Open it." Kelthries commanded. Varentis approached with clear disgust, his claws reaching for the container. The human stirred, her eyes opening just enough to see the dragon above her. "No," she whispered, her voice cracked and weak. "Please, they are safe. I kept them warm." Varentis froze. Kelthries felt something shift in her ancient heart. With surprising gentleness, the crimson dragon opened the thermal container. Inside, curled together in a nest of torn fabric, were 3 Dracorian hatchlings. They were alive, frightened but unharmed, their small scales gleaming in the dim light. The hunters erupted in cries of shock and joy. 3. Only 3 out of 17, but 3 nonetheless. 3 children returned from the void. Calthries stared at the human, trying to understand. This creature had clearly not been with the poachers. Her uniform bore the marks of the Galactic Union military, and her wounds spoke of combat, not accident. "You saved them," the matriarch said, her voice barely above a whisper. Why would a human risk death for Dracorian young? The human tried to speak, but her strength finally gave out. She slumped into the snow, unconscious, her hand still reaching toward the container. "We should leave her," Varentis said, though his voice lacked its earlier hatred. "She is not our concern. We have what matters." But Calthries remembered something her own mother had told her centuries ago, that the measure of a soul is not what it takes, but what it gives. This human had given everything. She had bled and frozen and fought, all to protect children that were not her own, that were not even her species. "Bring her," Calthries commanded. "She saved 3 of our young. The least we can do is hear her story." Varentis hesitated, then nodded. He lifted the human carefully, surprised by how fragile she felt in his claws, as the dragons took to the sky, carrying the rescued hatchlings and a mysterious human back to their caves. Calthries looked one last time at the frozen wasteland. 14 hatchlings were still out there, somewhere in the dark between stars. She could feel them calling to her, their fear like needles in her heart. But for the first time since the raid, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. A human had appeared in the snow, and nothing would ever be the same. Grieving Dragon Pack mourned their lost hatchlings until a human appeared in the snow. The caves of the Dracorian were warm with ancient fire, heated by thermal vents that ran deep into the planet's core. It was here that Sergeant Una Park opened her eyes for the first time in 2 days. She found herself lying on soft moss, covered in furs that smelled of smoke and something oddly comforting. Her wounds had been bandaged with careful precision, and the cold that had seeped into her bones was finally gone. But she was not alone. 40 pairs of eyes watched her from the shadows, dragons of every color, their scales catching the firelight, their expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion to outright hostility. "She wakes," a deep voice announced, and the dragons parted to allow Calthries to approach. The elder matriarch was enormous up close, her silver scales bearing the scars of countless battles. Her eyes holding the weight of millennia. Una tried to sit up, then gasped as pain shot through her ribs. "The hatchlings," she managed. "Are they alive and well?" Calthries answered. "Thanks to you, it seems. Though we still do not understand why." A younger dragon pushed forward, his crimson scales practically glowing with barely contained anger. "She could be lying, matriarch. Humans are known for their deception. Perhaps this is all an elaborate trap." "Varentis," Calthries said calmly, "let her speak before you condemn her." Una took a deep breath, organizing her thoughts. "These beings deserve the truth. All of it. My name is Sergeant Una Park of the Galactic Union Intelligence Division," she began. "I was assigned to infiltrate the Syndicate of Chains 6 months ago. They are one of the largest trafficking operations in the galaxy. They steal and sell rare species to collectors, to research facilities, to anyone with enough credits." The dragons shifted uneasily. They knew of the Syndicate, had heard stories of their cruelty. "I was aboard their ship as a hired guard," Una continued. "My mission was to plant a tracking device and gather evidence. I was not supposed to interfere directly. Command wanted the whole network, not just one ship." She paused, her hands clenching the furs beneath her. "Then we arrived at your world. I watched them raid your caves in the night. I saw them drag your children into cages while they screamed for their parents." Calthries' claws scraped against stone, leaving deep gouges. "My orders were clear. Do nothing, maintain cover, complete the mission. But when I looked at those hatchlings," Una's voice cracked, "they were so small. They were so afraid. I could not pretend I did not see them. What did you do? Kelthries asked quietly. I fought, Una said simply. I killed 3 of the crew before they subdued me. They were going to execute me, but their captain decided a live human prisoner might be worth something. So they threw me in the hold with the hatchlings. She looked at the dragons, her eyes burning with old pain. The main ship took 14 of your young and left. The shuttle I was on carried only 3, plus crew. I waited until we entered the atmosphere. Then I broke free again. You crashed the ship, Varentis said, and there was something like respect creeping into his voice. I damaged the engines. The crash was not intentional, but I made sure the hatchlings were protected. I wrapped them in thermal blankets, held them against my body. Humans run hot. We are deathworlders. I knew my heat could keep them alive, even when the systems failed. Kelthries studied the human for a long moment. She had lived 1,000 years, had met countless species, had learned to read truth from lies, and this small, fragile creature was not lying. You destroyed your mission, the matriarch said. You betrayed your orders, your career, everything you had worked for. And you did this for children that were not yours, for a species you had never met. Yes, Una answered without hesitation. Why? The question hung in the air, heavy and important. The dragons leaned closer, desperate to understand this strange being. Una met the matriarch's ancient eyes. Because they were children. Because they were helpless. Because someone had to protect them. There was no other choice. Silence fell across the caves. The Dracorian exchanged glances, struggling to process what they had heard. For most galactic species, survival came first. Loyalty extended only to one's own kind. Sacrifice for strangers was considered irrational, even insane. But humans, it seemed, operated by different rules. You are either the bravest creature I have ever met, Kelthries finally said, or the most foolish. Probably both, Una admitted with a weak smile. A small sound interrupted them, a chirping, insistent cry that made every dragon in the cave turn. One of the rescued hatchlings had escaped its nest and was making its way across the stone floor. It was tiny, barely larger than a human cat, with scales the color of fresh snow and eyes like blue flames. It moved directly toward Una, ignoring the adult dragons entirely. Pirith. No, one of the caretakers called, but the hatchling did not listen. It climbed onto Una's lap, curled into a tight ball, and let out a contented sigh. Warmth radiated from its small body, and it showed no intention of moving. The dragons stared in stunned silence. Imprinting, Varentis breathed. The hatchling has imprinted on the human. Kelthries felt something shift in the fabric of fate. Dracorian imprinting was sacred, unbreakable. Once a hatchling chose its protector, the bond lasted until death. This tiny dragon had chosen a human. Had chosen the one who saved it from the cold. It seems, Kelthries said slowly, that fate has decided your place among us. Una looked down at Pirith, then back at the matriarch. Her eyes were wet with tears she refused to let fall. Before the crash, I managed to plant a tracker on the main syndicate ship. The signal is still active. Your other 14 hatchlings can still be found. Hope flared in 40 hearts. But the signal is fading, Una added. We have less than 2 days before I lose them. After that, they could be anywhere in the galaxy. Kelthries rose to her full height, her wings spreading wide. Then we have no time to waste. Varentis, gather our 6 strongest warriors. We fly at dawn. She looked at the human, at the hatchling sleeping in her lap. And you, Sergeant Una Park, will guide us. This is no longer just your mission or ours. It is ours together. Una nodded, her hand gently resting on Pirith's warm scales. Together. Then, for the first time in days, the caves did not feel like a place of mourning. They felt like the beginning of something new. Grieving Dragon Pack mourned their lost hatchlings until a human appeared in the snow dawn on Velrith Ix, painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, the twin suns rising slowly above the frozen mountains. In the mouth of the great cave, 7 figures prepared for a journey into darkness. 6 Dracorian warriors stood in formation, their scales gleaming with battle readiness. Varentis with his crimson fire, the twins Cathora and Mourned, whose black scales absorbed light itself, old Serapheix, whose golden form had seen 3 wars, young Talindra, whose speed was legendary, and Garvok the Silent, whose emerald hide bore more scars than anyone could count. And in the center stood Yuna, small and soft compared to these ancient predators, yet somehow belonging. Kelthries approached the group, her silver scales catching the early light. In her claws, she carried something wrapped in ceremonial cloth. Sergeant Park, she said formally, you go to war alongside my people. You carry our hope and our future in your hands. Therefore, I give you this. She unwrapped the cloth to reveal a blade unlike any Yuna had seen, curved and elegant, forged from something that shimmered between metal and glass. With a handle wrapped in dragon leather, this is a flame fang, Kelthries explained. It was crafted in the fires of our homeworld, a planet that no longer exists. Only 12 remain in all the galaxy. It will never dull, never break, and will cut through any armor ever made. Yuna accepted the weapon with trembling hands. Matriarch, I cannot. This is too precious. You risked everything for 3 hatchlings you did not know, Kelthries replied. You have already proven yourself worthy. Now prove yourself again, and bring back the rest of our children. The human bowed deeply, a gesture of respect she had learned during her years in service. I swear it on my life. From the caves behind them came a small, distressed cry. Pirith was trying to follow, his tiny wings flapping uselessly as caretakers held him back. He does not want you to leave, Varentis observed. His tone surprisingly gentle, Yuna walked to the hatchling and knelt before him. His blue eyes were filled with fear and confusion, and her heart ached at the sight. I have to go, she said softly, stroking his snowy scales. But I promise you, little one, I will come back. And I will bring your brothers and sisters with me. Pirith chirped mournfully, but seemed to understand. He pressed his small head against her palm, a gesture of trust that made several of the warriors look away, moved despite themselves. Guard him well, Yuna told the caretakers. He's braver than he knows. With that, she turned and rejoined the war party. There would be time for tenderness later. Now was the time for battle. The journey to Kethrani Station took 18 hours. The dragons carrying Yuna across the void in a specially designed harness attached to Varentis's back. She had expected the experience to be terrifying, but instead found it strangely peaceful flying through space on the back of a dragon, watching stars drift past like scattered diamonds, feeling the warmth of ancient fire against the endless cold. It was the kind of thing humans wrote stories about. And yet here she was, living it. You are quiet, Varentis said, his voice rumbling through his chest. Most beings would be screaming by now. I grew up on a space station, Yuna replied. The void does not frighten me, only what lives in it. Varentis made a sound that might have been a laugh. You are strange for a human. Perhaps all humans are strange, and we simply never noticed. Perhaps, Yuna agreed. Tell me about the Dracorian. I know only what the databases say, and databases lie, for the next several hours. Varentis spoke of his people, of their ancient homeworld destroyed by a supernova, of their long wandering through the galaxy, of their near extinction when hunters drove them to the edge of oblivion. We were billions once, he said quietly. Now we number less than 10,000 across all worlds. Every hatchling is precious beyond measure. Every loss is a wound that never truly heals. I understand, Yuna said, and she meant it. Humans have faced extinction too. Not from hunters, but from ourselves. We nearly destroyed our own world before we learned to reach for the stars. And yet, you survived. We are stubborn, Yuna admitted. Impossibly, irrationally stubborn. We refuse to die even when the universe demands it. Varentis was silent for a moment. Perhaps that is why the hatchling chose you. Stubbornness is something Dracorian respect. Kathrani Station appeared in the distance. A massive structure built into an asteroid. Lights glittering across its surface like a diseased constellation. It was beautiful in a terrible way. A monument to greed and cruelty. The Syndicate controls everything here, Yuna explained as they approached. Security, trade, law, they are the only authority. If we are discovered, we will have the entire station hunting us. Then we will not be discovered, Seraphig said grimly. Until it is time to burn everything down. They landed in a hidden alcove on the station's outer hull, the dragons using their natural stealth to avoid detection. Yuna was impressed. For such large creatures, they moved like shadows. The tracker signal is coming from the lower levels, she said, checking her device. Detention Block 7. That is where they keep the most valuable cargo. Cargo, Talindra spat. They call our children cargo. Not for much longer, Yuna promised. Here's the plan. I will go in first, alone. Humans are common here, and I can move without suspicion. I will scout the security, find the exact location, and signal you when it is time to strike. You want us to let you walk into that nest of vipers by yourself? Kethra demanded. I want you to trust me, Yuna replied. I have done this before. Infiltration is what I was trained for. Give me 2 hours, and I will find a way to get us to the hatchlings. The dragons exchanged uncertain glances. Trusting outsiders did not come naturally to them, but Kelthries had trusted this human, and Pirith had chosen her. And she had already proven herself with blood and sacrifice. 2 hours, Varentis agreed. If you are not back by then, we come in burning. And we will not stop until we find you or they are all ash. Yuna smiled. A fierce expression that reminded the dragons of their own warriors. Fair enough. She checked the flame fang at her belt, adjusted her stolen syndicate uniform, and stepped toward the airlock. Yuna, Varentis called, and she paused. Humans have a saying, good luck. I never understood it before, but now I think I do. Thank you, Varentis, she said quietly. Watch for my signal. Then she was gone, swallowed by the station's shadows. A single human walking into the heart of darkness. Behind her, 6 dragons waited, their fire ready. Their hearts burning with hope and fear in equal measure. The hunt had truly begun. Grieving Dragon Pack mourned their lost hatchlings until a human appeared in the Snokithrani station was everything Yuna remembered and worse. A labyrinth of shadowed corridors and flickering lights, where every face hid a predator, and mercy was just another word for weakness. She moved through the crowds with practiced ease, her stolen uniform granting her passage through checkpoints, her expression carefully blank. She had spent 6 months becoming invisible in places like this, and the skill had not faded. Detention Block 7 was exactly where she expected. Deep in the station's belly, guarded by automated turrets and organic patrols. A fortress within a fortress, but Yuna had not survived this long by attacking fortresses directly. She found a maintenance access point and slipped inside, crawling through ventilation shafts designed for beings much smaller than her. The metal scraped against her wounds, reopening cuts that had barely begun to heal. But she did not stop through the grating below. She saw them, 14 Dracorian hatchlings huddled in separate cages. Their scales dull with fear, their cries muffled by some kind of suppression field. They were alive, but barely, and standing before them was a nightmare-given flesh. Soverk was a Kelthrani, tall and skeletal, with pale blue skin stretched tight over angular bones. His eyes were black pools that reflected no light, and his smile revealed rows of needle-sharp teeth. He wore robes of finest silk, each one worth more than most beings earned in a lifetime. "My beautiful collection," he murmured, running a long finger across one of the cages. "Dracorian young are so rare, so precious. The auction tomorrow will make me the wealthiest being in 3 sectors." Yuna's blood burned with rage, but she forced herself to watch, to wait, to understand, and then she saw it, a control panel on Zorvak's belt, connected by thin wires to each of the cages. Neural implants, she realized with horror. Kill switches implanted directly into the hatchlings' nervous systems if she attacked. If the dragons attacked, Zorvak could murder every single child with the press of a button. She needed a new plan. Yuna retreated through the vents and found a quiet corner to contact her team. Varentis answered immediately, his voice tight with impatience. "The hatchlings are alive," she reported. "But there's a complication. The commander has neural implants in each of them. If we attack directly, he will kill them all." Silence fell across the channel. She could feel the dragon's fury and despair through the void. "What do we do?" Talindra asked, her voice breaking. Yuna had already made her decision. She had made it the moment she saw those children in cages. "I am going to surrender myself." "What?" Varentis roared. "Have you lost your mind?" "Listen to me," Yuna said firmly. "Humans are rare in this sector. Zorvak collects exotic species. If I present myself as a captured Deathworlder, he will want to examine me personally. He will bring me close, and when he does, I will kill him and destroy the control panel." "That is suicide," Varentis protested. "You will be surrounded by guards, unarmed, injured. Even a Deathworlder cannot survive those odds." "Maybe not," Yuna agreed. "But the hatchlings will. When I disable the kill switch, you come in and get them out. Do not wait for me. Do not look back. Just take the children and run. This is not a discussion, Varentis. This is the only way. I made a promise to Pirith, and I intend to keep it, one way or another. Those hatchlings are going home." Another long silence. Then Garvok spoke for the first time since leaving Varath Ix. "She has the heart of a dragon. We should honor it." 30 minutes, Yuna said. "When you hear the alarms, move fast. I will hold them as long as I can." She did not wait for a response. She was already walking toward Detention Block 7, toward the monster who held innocent lives in his claws. The guards stopped her at the entrance, weapons raised. She let them. "I have information," she announced loudly. "About the Dracorian. There are more of them coming. I demand to speak with Commander Zorvak immediately." The guards exchanged glances, then dragged her inside. It was almost too easy. Zorvak's chambers were obscenely luxurious. Silk curtains, rare artworks, the skulls of extinct species mounted on the walls like trophies. The commander himself lounged on a throne of carved bone, watching Yuna with hungry curiosity. "A human," he breathed. "I have not added a human to my collection in decades. They are so fragile, so quick to break, but occasionally one finds a specimen worth keeping." "I am not here to join your collection," Yuna said coldly. "I am here to make a deal." Zorvak laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "A deal? You are in no position to bargain, little Deathworlder." "The Dracorian are coming," Yuna continued, ignoring his mockery. 6 warriors, led by Matriarch Kelthris herself. They will burn this station to slag looking for their young. But I can tell you exactly where they are hiding, exactly when they plan to attack, in exchange for my freedom and a percentage of the auction profits." Zorvak leaned forward, his black eyes gleaming with interest. "You would betray your allies so easily?" "They are not my allies," Yuna shrugged. "I am a mercenary. I go where the credits flow. Right now, the credits are with you. The commander studied her for a long moment, searching for deception. Yuna kept her expression perfectly neutral, her heartbeat steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. "Come closer," Zora commanded. "Let me see your eyes when you tell me where the dragons hide." Yuna stepped forward, and the guards did not stop her. Zorvik rose from his throne, towering over her, his skeletal fingers reaching toward her face. "Such fire in those eyes," he murmured. "Perhaps I will keep you after all." Yuna moved her hand shot to his belt, grabbed the control panel, and crushed it in her grip before he could react. Sparks flew, circuits died, and the connection to 14 neural implants went dark forever. "What?" Zorvik started to scream. But Yuna was already drawing the flame, fang from where she had hidden it against her spine. The ancient blade sang through the air and opened the commander's throat in a single, perfect arc. He collapsed, his black eyes wide with disbelief. His collection dreams drowning in his own blood alarms erupted throughout the station. Guards poured into the chamber, weapons firing. Yuna rolled behind Zorvak's throne, using it as cover, the flame fang flashing as she cut down anyone who came too close. She activated her communicator with bloodied fingers. "The kill switch is down. Get the hatchlings now." Somewhere in the station, 6 dragons roared in response, and the walls began to shake. Yuna fought on, alone against an army, buying seconds with blood and fury. She took a blast to the shoulder, another to the leg, but she did not fall. She could not fall, not until the children were safe. The guards pushed her back, surrounding her in the cargo bay. There were too many, far too many, and her vision was starting to blur, but she kept fighting because that was what humans did. They fought until the very end, and sometimes beyond, and in the distance. Growing closer with every heartbeat, she heard the sound of dragon fire. Grieving Dragon Pack mourned their lost hatchlings until a human appeared in the snow. The dragons fell upon Kethrani, stationed like the wrath of forgotten gods. Varentis led the charge, his crimson flames turning corridors into infernos, his roar shaking the very foundations of the asteroid. "The hatchlings first," he bellowed. "Talindra, Kethra, get them to the ship. The rest of us find Yuna." The twins moved with impossible speed, slicing through guards who barely had time to scream. They reached Detention Block 7 and found 14 cages standing open. 14 terrified hatchlings huddling together in freedom they did not yet understand. "Come, little ones," Kethra said gently, her black scales somehow soft in the emergency lighting. "Your family has come to take you home." Meanwhile, Varentis and the others tore through the station, following the trail of destruction Yuna had left behind. Dead guards littered the floors, each one cut down by a blade that burned like captured sunlight. "She fights like a demon," Seraphix observed with grudging admiration. "How is she still alive?" "Because she promised," Varentis answered. "And humans keep their promises." They found her in the cargo bay, surrounded by the bodies of her enemies, the flame fang still clutched in her bloodied hand. She was on her knees, barely conscious, her uniform more red than black, but she was alive. Syndicate reinforcements poured in from every direction, their weapons hot with anger and fear. The dragons formed a protective circle around Yuna, their fire creating a barrier of light and death. "We need to move," Garvok shouted, taking a hit to his emerald scales. "There are too many." Varentis reached down and lifted Yuna with surprising gentleness. "Hold on, human. You do not have permission to die yet." Yuna laughed weakly, blood bubbling on her lips. Would not dream of it. The fighting retreat was brutal. Mourned took a wound to his wing that would take months to heal, and Seraphix's golden hide was scorched by plasma fire. But they did not stop, did not slow. Carrying their human warrior through hell itself, the ship was waiting where they had left it. Engines running, Talindra at the controls with 14 hatchlings secured in the hold. The moment the last dragon was aboard, She launched them into the void, leaving Kathrani Station burning behind them. Yuna collapsed the moment they reached safety. Her wounds had finally caught up with her, and her body simply stopped responding. She felt cold, so cold, even as dragonfire surrounded her. "Stay with us," Varentis commanded, his voice rough with emotion. "Stay with us, Yuna." But she was already drifting, falling into darkness that felt almost peaceful. The last thing she heard before consciousness left her was Varentis' voice, breaking with something that sounded like grief. "Do not leave us. You are Pack now. We do not leave Pack behind." Yuna woke to warmth unlike anything she had ever known. It surrounded her, filled her, burned away the cold that had seeped into her very soul. She opened her eyes and found herself lying in the heart of the Dracorian caves. Surrounded by 40 dragons and 17 hatchlings, they were singing, not with words, but with fire. Pure, brilliant flame that rose from their throats and merged in the air above her, creating patterns of light that danced like living things. The heat was intense but not painful, and she felt it weaving through her wounds, closing flesh, mending bone. Dracorian healing fire, Kalthris explained, her voice carrying through the song. It has never been used on one not of our kind. We did not know if it would save you or destroy you, but we had to try. Yuna tried to speak, but found she had no words. She could only watch as the fire did its work, as ancient magic older than human civilization flowed through her broken body. And then she felt something else, a small, warm presence pressing against her side. Pirith had curled up next to her, his tiny flames joining the chorus, his blue eyes never leaving her face. He had waited for her. He had believed she would come back. The healing took hours, or maybe days. Yuna lost track of time in that river of light and warmth. When it finally ended, she sat up slowly, examining herself with wonder. Her wounds were gone. Not just healed, but vanished, as if they had never existed. And across her arms, her shoulders, her back, faint patterns had appeared, scale-like marks that shimmered when the light caught them. Souvenirs of dragonfire written into her very skin. "A mark of our people," Varentis said, approaching with something like reverence. "You carry our fire inside you now. It will burn until the day you die, and perhaps beyond." Yuna touched the marks gently. "I do not know what to say." "Say nothing," Kalthris replied, moving to stand before her. "Words are not needed between family." She gestured, and the 17 hatchlings came forward. 3 who remembered being saved in the snow. 14 who remembered being freed from cages. All of them looking at Yuna with eyes full of gratitude and love. "You gave us back our future," the matriarch said. "There is no gift great enough to repay such a debt, but we can offer you a place among us if you wish it. You can stay here on Vorath Ix as one of our own." Yuna felt tears streaming down her face, and she did not try to stop them. "My career is over. My mission failed. I have nowhere else to go, but I would not have it any other way." Pirith chirped happily and climbed into her lap, settling in as if he had always belonged there. Yuna held him close, feeling his warmth against her chest. "Then it is decided," Kalthris declared. "From this day forward, Yuna Park is Dracorian in spirit, if not in scale. Her enemies are our enemies. Her children are our children. Her fire burns with ours until the stars grow cold." The dragons roared in approval, a sound that shook the mountains and echoed across the frozen plains. Months passed. The syndicate of chains collapsed under the weight of evidence Yuna had provided, its leaders scattered and hunted, its network torn apart by forces that would not tolerate the trade in stolen lives. Yuna found her place among the dragons, teaching them what she knew of human tactics, learning what they knew of ancient wisdom. She watched the hatchlings grow, played with them in the snow, told them stories of distant Earth and the strange, stubborn creatures who lived there. One evening, Varentis found her sitting at the cave entrance, watching the sun set over the ice. Pirith slept in her arms, growing larger every day, but still refusing to leave her side. "You could return to your people," he said quietly. "Your name has been cleared. The Galactic Union would welcome you back as a hero." Una smiled, her hand stroking Pirith's warm scales. "I am with my people." Varentis stood beside her in comfortable silence. After a moment, he spoke again. "I hated humans once. I thought you were all monsters. I was wrong. Not all humans are good," Una admitted. "But the good ones, we try. We try so hard." "I know," Varentis said. "I know now." From deep within the caves, Kelfris's voice rose in the ancient Dracorian blessing, a song that had been sung for millions of years. "Fire recognizes fire. She was always one of us. She simply had to find her way home." Una closed her eyes and listened, feeling the warmth of dragon fire in her blood, the weight of a sleeping hatchling in her arms, the presence of a family she had never expected to find. She had walked into the snow alone and broken. She had emerged transformed and whole, and she would never be cold again.